and cooperation in order to address this key concern. A summit of this nature, ladies and gentlemen, is critical in addressing the concerns of industry and civil society. And as the leadership of the city, it is incumbent upon all of us gathered here today in this room to take up the baton, roll up our sleeves, and do something about it. How are we going to build energy solutions that are sustainable, targeted initiatives with key goals, with dates, time-bound strategies that are going to move us forward as a society? Undunankulu weTheku, KZN, yesterday touched on this very important intervention. And it is welcome that from the side of government, the regulations are now going to be streamlined and processes are going to become enablers, exactly what they should be. And in order to reduce the frustration and in order to speed up the ability of getting licenses through various authorities and various industry bodies, it is welcome that we are now going to see an expedited business and government partnership. The PPP was emphasized yesterday as a key takeaway from this summit. So it is quite clear, delegates, that there is incredible effort that is being put in by various stakeholders to try and rescue the situation. At this point, I would like to give the opportunity to His Worship, Mayor Mxolisi Kaunda. Baba, please, may we hear your address this morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Program Director, who's also the Chairperson of Manufacturing Forum, Utatwetu Snqobile Khulusi. Thank you for steering this ship. You have a big responsibility to steer it towards the right direction. Her Excellency, the Consul General of the USA, Her Excellency Ann Lin, the Head of Infrastructure South Africa, Professor Ramahopa, the Deputy Mayor of eThekwini, Councillor Myeni, is present, all the councillors who are present today from different municipalities and councillors of eThekwini Municipality. I hope that today you are relaxed. Yesterday you were too tense. When I addressed you early in the morning, you were all shocked, and I asked myself, what did I do? But I could realize that, no, it was the first day. I can see you today, you are all relaxed. But give yourself a big round of applause for that. And I hope you enjoyed your stay at night in this warmest place in Africa, the beautiful city, which some are saying is no longer beautiful, but we are going to fix it to be what it's supposed to be, together with you. This is the duty of all of us as residents, as people, as business, as the municipality, to make this city work. Thank you very much, colleagues. They were advising me when we were seated at the holding room that no, some seats are still empty. Then I said, no, we don't do our business in that way. Those who will be late will join us late. We need to start on time. I said already we're late about 10 minutes, because when we do business of this nature, we need to keep time and we need to stick to our program. Thank you for keeping time as participants even today. We welcome you all on the second day of our eThekwini Energy Transformation Summit. Yesterday, our discussion centered around the power crisis in the country and how, working together, we can augment energy supply. But I also want to allay some fears from the investors and the potential investors that our city is hard at work to fix the broken infrastructure. We are doing our work because we understand that the infrastructure that we talk about are the nerves of the economy. So when the roads are not in good shape, energy is not adequate, water has got problems, station, so that does not contribute positively to the growth that the city envisages. So therefore, we are working hard to fix all the challenges that we have been faced with. Yes, I agree as a mayor that we've been in the ICU with many life support machines. Now we've just shifted from the ICU with many life support machines. We are now in another ICU with lesser machines. We are preparing ourselves to go to the normal ward. From the normal ward, then that will be the prosperity of people of eThekwini. This is easy to be achieved as long as we work together to fix the city. There were many fears raised yesterday about the small businesses and how they are going to be assisted to partake in all the programs that we presented, even the opportunities that we'll be presenting today. The city is finalizing its Enterprise and Supply Development Fund. That fund is not going to be a government fund. It's going to be a fund to support enterprise and supply development to make sure that in the city, even the emerging companies are also working as expected. That is not the fund that will be managed by us as a city. It's the fund that will have someone who will be operating it, who will be appointed through the legal framework that we have to look after the interest of the fund, but also the board will involve the private sector, involve government and other people and influential people in the society, so that we all work together to have a fund that will assist our communities. Why we are paying so much attention to this fund is because this fund must help us. Those who have ideas, who are innovative, they mustn't complain about not having capital injection to start such initiative. This fund must enable them. When they have ideas, they have everything, they have capacity and capabilities, but they shouldn't be complaining about the access to finance. But it is not only going to be a support that the municipality will also be rendering, the institutional support will also be a mechanism to sustain small businesses so that they play a role in the economy of the city. We are not going to leave anyone behind. We want all sectors to participate. We want big, small, medium enterprises to participate. We want to see more cooperatives. We want to see more social enterprises also entering the space of the mainstream economy. In the previous years, when you talk about cooperatives, you just only think about catering, grass cutting. That's what people always view cooperatives. But if you look at other big economies in developed countries, cooperatives have been playing a major role in building the economies, and they are holding bigger stakes in the economy of their countries. So let us shift from that mentality that cooperatives are there to manage catering, to manage grass cutting, but they are also there to participate in the mainstream economy. And we must guarantee them the support as government, that we are here for them so that they can navigate this space. As I'll be presenting the opportunities in this speech, I also want to call upon the transport industry. We are experiencing some challenges there. Between our taxi industry and e-hailing services, there is violence that is taking place, and we do not agree that the only way to solve our problems should be violence. We believe that the only way to solve our problems is to expand your businesses. The opportunities that we'll be presenting here today must move the taxi industry and the e-hailing industry from fighting over small operations, but to grab and seize the opportunities that we'll be presenting today. Because they are the major consumers of fuel. So therefore, these opportunities we'll be presenting today They must take them with both hands so that we stop violence, but we deal with the economy. So these two do not come together. Can't have economy on this side growing and violence on this side. Something must be put aside, which is violence, but we all concentrate in building the economy of our city. We also note the challenges that people have been raising with us as a municipality, that when you talk about economy, Prof, we aspire to be a mixed economy. So there is a role for the state, and that role should be bold enough. There is a role for the private sector, and there is also a role for social partners. So there shouldn't be any partner who elevates its role on top of other partners, but let us all work together to build this economy. It requires decisive action and bold action from government, but also playing the role in building the economy, working with the private sector, working with social partners. Hence, we always challenge our officials, Prof, that Section 8 of the Local Government Systems Act also allow municipalities to do business with public entities. But our officials normally opt to do business with only companies, then also acknowledging the role of communities in building their own areas and their own economies. As I've said, we are coming out of that ICU. There are many catalytic projects in this city, which ISA is working with us to support us so that they are realized to boost the economy of our city, as well as creating a number of jobs in our municipality. It is important to note that electricity is only a component of total energy use. Critical discussions around the demand for gas and changing landscape in the liquid fuel industry must be informed by our commitment to build an environmentally sustainable energy sector for the future. So today we must zoom into the potential that exists in the liquid fuel industry. We believe hydrogen is economy, presents opportunities as an alternative fuel of the future. Therefore, we are saying scaling up alternative energy sources and carriers is more urgent than ever. We have seen escalating cost of fuel in South Africa due to heavy reliance on the imported refined petroleum products. Ladies and gentlemen, we are encouraged to see such a diverse group of upstream, midstream, and downstream companies in attendance again today. This demonstrates our commitment to build a sustainable energy sector. Natural gas presents an opportunity for economic growth and new value-add products. We believe that the penetration scale of hydrogen could provide market with clean molecules necessary to decarbonize hard-to-abate sectors of our economy. The International Energy Agency, the IEA, reports that global hydrogen demand could grow sevenfold by 2050. This represents 22% of the global final energy demand and 680 million metric tons of hydrogen required in 2050. Ladies and gentlemen, the IEA report further states that global hydrogen industry is expected to grow significantly, reaching $15 trillion investment by 2050. In the context of South Africa, the gas and hydrogen economy in the country has maintained its upward trajectory due to domestic discoveries and projects that are being developed. It is important to note that South Africa currently consumes a whopping 250 petajoules, PJs per annum of gas, which is equivalent to 5 million tons per annum, MTPA. We believe the natural gas production, together with associated imports, should not be viewed only as potential fuel source of electricity generation, but as part of wider contribution to the energy demand of our country. This includes gas utilization as feedstock for industrial heating processes. Ladies and gentlemen, we believe that capacity allocation of 3,000 megawatts for gas could reduce the impact of load shedding to industries and help Eskom reduce the deficit in the supply of electricity. Also, the developments in hydrogen economy in the country are crucial for our decarbonization efforts, especially in sectors such as aviation, shipping, steel, and aluminum, and petrochemicals. Excuse me. The Department of Science and Innovation has established the Hydrogen Society Roadmap, which was adopted by Parliament in 2021. Durban and Richards Bay have been identified as demand centers for heavy fuel industry and medium-duty trucks along the N3 and N2 freight corridor. Program Director, we are also happy about South Africa's Hydrogen Value Project, which was launched in 2021 with 3 catalytic green hydrogen hubs. These hubs include Mogalakwena in Limpopo, Johannesburg in Gauteng, Durban and Richards Bay in KwaZulu-Natal province. These developments showcase to the global hydrogen industry what South Africa could offer in the regional trades and partnership. In addition, we are happy that the Department of Trade and Industry and Competition in our country, DTIC, has concluded the draft Green Hydrogen Commercialization Strategy, the GHCS, for South Africa. eThekwini Municipality, just like the rest of the world, is faced with more than just an electricity crisis. There is pressing need for economic growth, social advancement, and expansion of critical infrastructure within the municipality. In response to these pressing societal issues, the municipality has approved the first ever regional hydrogen strategy in Africa, which outlines our role in the gas and hydrogen industry. The regional hydrogen strategy also outlines the exciting potential that lies in building a future hydrogen economy that can deliver, beyond clean energy and fuels, holistic city resilience that builds on circular economy principles, sustaining existing jobs and creating fairer opportunities for newly trained workforce. Our regional hydrogen economy seeks to transform eThekwini's energy landscape by reducing heavy dependence on fossil fuels in exchange of reliance of domestically sourced low-carbon fuels. We have identified 3 strategic clusters by hydrogen development, namely Durban Port, Richards Bay Port, and Keteridge Dry Port. These strategic clusters have demonstrated a competitive advantage due to easy access to gas pipeline infrastructure, renewable energy resources, refinery infrastructure, land availability, and liquid fuel storage infrastructure. Ladies and gentlemen, we are happy to announce that our regional hydrogen strategy could unlock $23 billion of private investment in the long term, approximately $10 billion, which will equate to $199.5 billion, is estimated on infrastructure investment by 2030. The hydrogen economy will not only bring infrastructure investment to our city, but it will create a much-needed sustainable job opportunities and large-scale infrastructure projects to our city. Up to 260,000 construction jobs and 11,000 permanent jobs could be created by 2030. As long as, as government, we work like businesses. The EIAs, the water use licenses, these things should not be things that we prolong. And our officials should also understand that we we are under pressure. This economy must grow. So the way they work, we should reduce the timelines so that we are able to achieve our goals. We are not saying they must break the law, but we are saying they must up the pace. We can't send a message where we say, just break the law, do it for within 1 month, because there are many assessments that needs to be conducted, but they must stick to the plan. We do have timelines. The plan we presented yesterday, Prof, have clear timelines. So with those timelines, we need to live true to them. We don't need to delay ourselves. By 2050, the hydrogen economy could create approximately 392,786 construction jobs and 24,671 permanent jobs in eThekwini and Richards Bay regions. Apart from job opportunities that must be created, we want to appeal to you to work towards creating new business opportunities, including value chain beneficiation model to maximize the participation of blacks in general and Africans in particular, especially in this sector. We shouldn't leave any sector where we suppress the growth of the emerging businesses and the participation of those who have been locked out of the mainstream economy. Let us work together and share this cake. It is a big cake. It needs to be shared by all of us. Let us not close ranks, say this is our monopolistic area, so therefore others can't come in. Even when they come in, we go and negotiate with the suppliers. We'll tell them to escalate prices so that those who are emerging can't afford to survive in a space. They'll then decide to sell the job because they can't survive. Those things must be killed, must be rooted out. That's what frustrates people. That's why people sell the projects, because they can't afford to run the projects. They are suppressed. Let's open up the economy. People of this country are unemployed. They live under poverty lines. So therefore, it necessitates, let's open up this economy so that we can share in the very same economy. Ladies and gentlemen, the refining capacity of liquid fuel industries declined significantly owing to market competitiveness, increasing geopolitical risk, and changing energy dynamics such as compliance and clean fuel regulations, the mandate, desulfurization of crude oil processes. Therefore, we must formulate strategies for the repurposing of the liquid fuel industry. eThekwini is home to two of the largest crude oil refineries, namely South African Petroleum Refinery, SAPREF, and Engine Refinery, with installed capacity of 180,000 and 135,000 barrels per day, respectively. They both contribute 57% to the liquid fuel industry in South Africa. However, both refineries are facing uncertain future, and this has some major economic implications on the revenue generation of our city and of our province. We welcome the interventions by the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy, the Central Energy Fund, and KZN provincial government to turn around the SAPREF situation. The turnaround plan will require all stakeholders to assess the possibility of stranded assets and job losses in South of Durban. We must all work together to ensure that we restructure gas industry and contribute to the strategic repurposing of SAPREF refinery. The eThekwini Council has already approved the establishment of South Durban Energy and Chemicals Park, which we call it SDECP. We seek to work with all relevant stakeholders to effectively repurpose SAPREF site into SDECP. This South Durban Energy and Chemicals Park will include LNG storage infrastructure, LNG import terminal. This includes marine bunkering and trucks, the floating system, regasification unit, gas to power that will produce electricity for eThekwini Municipality, green hydrogen for exports and biofuels. We believe the gas demand in KZN will grow significantly over time, and we are currently engaging with private sector players to enable already existing plants to supply energy to eThekwini. The SDCP will allow the existing eThekwini infrastructure for gas demand to be met. It will also provide certainty for demand to grow, offering a possibility for other municipalities to benefit from this infrastructure. Program Director South Africa is said to have a potential to produce a minimum of 6 million tons of low carbon hydrogen and derivatives a year by 2050. Approximately 2.5 million tons will be produced in Durban and Richards Bay, which represents about 42% of the hydrogen market in South Africa. Before I land, I also wish to recognize the chairperson of the ANC in the region, as well as the chairperson of Economic Development and Planning in our municipality, Councillor Ntuli Siyabona. Ladies and gentlemen, as we strive to make eThekwini the most caring and livable city by 2030, we also want to be the hydrogen economic capital of South Africa. This is easy to realize as long as we work together. We join our efforts. No one must be left behind. I thank you.
Thank you, Babu Mayor. I'm sure you are not aware, but it is a very positive coincidence that in your encouragement, as you opened your address, you mentioned that I have a big responsibility to steer this ship. I must mention to you, Babu Mayor, as well, that my daytime job, I have the privilege and honor of working as the Chief People Officer for Sandok Austral Shipyards. So I'm quite familiar with steering ships. Thank you, Babu Mayor. Ladies and gentlemen, just to reflect on the important address that was relayed by Babu Mayor. Babu Mayor, there are many scholars who write at length, and I'm sure Professor Ramakgopa will agree that leadership is a difficult task. And they write extensively about leadership in a crisis. And one of the key items that they refer to is that as a leader, you do not always have all the answers. But what you do as a good leader is you find all the knowledgeable people, the experts, and you engage them on how we are going to find an inclusive way forward. And that is what you have done this morning. You have engaged government and industry experts, and you have encouraged us together today to work together. My two key takeaways, Babu Mayor, from your address. As a representative of manufacturing industry, there is a lot of emphasis that is placed on two words, efficiency and productivity. Your encouragement that processes need to be enablers is very important because efficiency and productivity drive performance. And that is what we are looking forward to see from the city and the team that is currently functioning in eThekwini. My second takeaway is the creation of the fund is most welcome. We need to see the driving of innovative solutions and sustainable energy solutions. We need to also see an inclusive manufacturing. Our vision as the Manufacturing Forum, to share with you, Babu Mayor, is that we are reimagining manufacturing to become more inclusive. We are prioritizing disadvantaged groups. And you mentioned, Babu Mayor, the importance of giving opportunities to small emerging businesses that are led by people of color, that are led by women, that are led by people with disability. Thank you, Babu Mayor, for your insightful address. We really appreciate it, Bab. In the essence of time, I would now like to call up our second speaker. As you would have noted on our program, the Premier has another engagement, so we are going to move to presentation by Professor Ramokgopa. Professor Ramokgopa is currently serving as, and I'm going to get it right, please bear with me, very important portfolio, the head of infrastructure in South Africa under the Investment and Infrastructure Office in the Presidency. Professor Ramokgopa, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Program Director, for inviting me just to share some few thoughts. Just as a bit of anecdote, I studied here for 4 years when I did my undergraduate degree in civil engineering. And I've gotten accustomed to you referring to me as Ramokgopa. I'm Ramokgopa, so I had braced myself coming here that I'm going back to Durban. I used to ask a friend of mine, but why do you call me Rama? He said, you know what, we're already doing you a favor. We are battling to pronounce the R. Now you are complicating it with the M-O. But it's fine, you are forgiven, Program Director. It's a confirmation that I'm in eThekwini, that's great. Even the mayor, Honorable Mayor, referred me to as Ramokgopa. So thank you very much for the invitation. And just to extend my warm and sincere greetings to the Honorable Mayor Kaunda, the Deputy Mayor, MMCs, are they MMCs? Do you call chairpersons? Yes. And let me greet you all in your eminence. So I have an aid of a presentation because it's a bit more technical what I'll be presenting to you so that you are able to consume the numbers and then have an appreciation of the storyline I'll be sharing with you, because I think it's important that in the course of these conversations, we are able to surface what these opportunities are in numbers so that we are also able to illustrate that there's a bit of science and evidence that underpins some of these opportunities that we have identified. So as I'm waiting for the technical people to help me to beam the slides, just to say as a bit of context that the country has agreed to what we call the national determined contribution. So this is really, if you like, voluntary targets that the country has set itself with the intention of ensuring that we are able to reduce the emissions and adapt to the impact of climate change. And then we also agreed to what we call the net zero path. What the net zero path really seeks to do is to reduce, to the extent that is possible, greenhouse gas emissions into the atmosphere. And those that are residual will hopefully be, if you like, reabsorbed by oceans and forests. I'm making this part because that also informs our computation of the integrated resource plan, which is essentially a plan that articulates how we see, if you like, the sources of the various energy technologies to the South African economy. So I'm sure all of you would have read, or most of you will have read the IRP 2019. You can see that there's a home for coal. I think it's about 44% of the total mix. There's also an articulation about nuclear should be about 2.5%. PVs envisaged to contribute about 10%. And the wind is projected to contribute about 15%. And then there's also gas and diesel are also projected to contribute about 15.9%. And then there are other new technologies that they exist, and some of those technologies refers to the concentrated solar power. So there's a project that we are doing in the Kathu area is going to bring to the grid about 100 megawatts of electricity so that we are able to alleviate, if you like, the deficit that we are experiencing, which accounts for, in a large part, the issues around load shedding. Now you can see that in the mix that I have shared with you, of course, there's issues around hydro, 0.6%, contribution with regards to the integrated energy resource plan. The one area that does not receive any attention is what we call green hydrogen. And the only reason why green hydrogen is not part of the conversation is because for any technology solution to make it on the integrated resource plan, you must satisfy 3 conditions. The first one is that it's about cost reflective electricity supply. So that's the first part. So, and then the second part is just achieving demand balance. And then the third part is understanding the unit cost of that energy source. So we have not come to fully appreciate and understand, if you like, the cost of delivering green hydrogen. All we know is that it could be anything between 3 to 4 times of the total solution that is provided by, if you like, your conventional energy sources. I'm saying conventional because those are already part of the grid. I'm trying to buy time. I'm not succeeding because now I'm getting into numbers. Oh, it's up there. I thought it would be here. My sincere apologies. Can I use that thing, the pointer? So I've painted the picture. So remember, what is it we are trying to resolve? We are trying to resolve 3 issues: forward, back, and then okay. No, that's fine. Okay, so we are at the beginning. I trust that you can see what is before you. So just to say that, remember that when we have the conversation around green hydrogen, for it to land on the updated integrated resource plan, it must resolve those 3 questions. So we must understand the source, we must have an appreciation of the demand, and then we must be able to compute the unit cost. So if you are not able to resolve those questions, it's very difficult for green hydrogen to make its way on the integrated resource plan. So as I present to you, I'm going to attempt to address these questions. And I must confess right at the onset that it's very difficult to compute the last one, which is the unit cost. But we know that with the maturity and advancement of technology, the cost curve is going to come down and is going to be competitive and making it possible for us to enter in the most aggressive fashion, if you like, into the energy mix. So what is the story? The Honorable Mayor has articulated the origins of the idea around green hydrogen. So when we first started to have a conversation around green hydrogen in the country, really the issue was to address the issue, questions around opportunities on powered fuel cells. And the focus really was on the issues around what are the opportunities regarding electric vehicles as an alternative to the internal combustion engine. But we have come to realize that green hydrogen is significantly bigger than that. The mayor makes the point that we are trying to address what we refer to as the hard-to-abate sectors. So we know that if you look at the contributions of emissions in the world, so the number 1 emissions has to do with electricity and energy. The second one has to do with transportation. And therefore, what the green hydrogen attempts to do is to attack those 2 big emitters in the world. And I'll share with you, on the electricity, really, the conversation in the country has been the search for electrons. And our argument is that it has to be a combination of both the electron and the molecule. And I'm be talking about the hydrogen molecule, and then also the existence of a grid capacity to be able to evacuate the molecule so that we are able to get it to areas where it's needed the most. So we know that there are hard-to-abate sectors in the transportation industry, so that's maritime and aviation. So those are the 2 areas that we're going to address to confront with regards to the technology that is green hydrogen, because it's not technically possible to power aeroplanes and big ships through, if you like, electric motors. So it's important that we look at the alternative sources. And then the second opportunity with regards to the use of green hydrogen is what we call heavy industry. So these are your smelters, large production plants, and also big axle loads, vehicles rather. So if you like, your articulated trucks. So there has been modeling that has been done that if you had to place batteries to power or replace the internal combustion engine in your multiple axle trucks is going to be an additional load on the axle, and therefore green hydrogen presents those opportunities. And that's why the mayor refers to, if you like, the platinum belt from Mogalakwena all the way to the port. So what the Anglo has done has tried to retrofit their existing fleet of vehicles, yellow plants, to ensure that they benefit from green hydrogen. And I'm going to illustrate to you the many examples that exist on the uses of green hydrogen. As we have this conversation, the technology has advanced. So what the slide really attempts to share with you is that there are significantly 3 pathways of how we are going to achieve this. So the first one is around local industry. So we already have smelters who are producing steel in the country. And then we also enjoy a grid position. So there's one of the most advanced grid network on the continent and in the world is in South Africa. So the ability for you to evacuate the electrons from the sources of renewable to areas where they are needed the most. So that's the one advantage we have. The second one that we have is around the existence of the PGMs, which are significant input sources for your electrolyzers. So if you know that, I think the technical computation of how you produce green hydrogen is that you dismember, if you like, this molecule into its constituent elements. That's water and hydrogen. And because in the dismembering effort going through the electrolyzer, we are using renewable energies, that's why we call it green hydrogen. I think that's the point I'm trying to make. So what is the opportunity here is that we are home to 90% of all known deposits of PGMs in the world. Between us and Zimbabwe, we carry about 90% of the known deposits, underlying the known deposits. So there's an opportunity for us to be able to localize and therefore industrialize, and then resolve the supply side of the equation, essentially absorbing the kind of, those who are unemployed. Of course, there's a need for reskilling and skilling, so that we are able to illustrate that the net employment effect moving from fossil fuel to green technology is possible, because it's a political discourse that requires attention. So we must be alive to the fact that there are conversations about the net employment effect of transitioning to green. So it's important that we exert all of our energies to ensure that we are able to address that question. And then the second one is around exports. So our analysis suggests that because there's a premium in the production of green hydrogen, because of the technology has not matured, and then it can't compete with the existing solutions. We think that your first opportunity to commercialize, if you like, green hydrogen is through exports, because we are anticipating that the major industrialized countries, essentially the global north, the Western countries, and I'll show you which are those countries, are going to introduce what we call carbon borders. So essentially any product that is produced as a result of fossil fuels will not be allowed passage into their territories, or there's going to be a significant levy associated with that. So that's the opportunity that presents itself as a start. And I'm going to show you that going into the future, once we bring the cost curve down, then there's opportunities for domestic consumption. That's the point I'm making. That's a more technical slide, but I'm going to attempt to explain it. So what this slide simply says is that we are already sitting with the technology as I speak to you. So we are able to dismember this hydrogen, the H2O, into its constituent element, that of oxygen and water. But what we are doing now, as we power the electrolyzers, in many instances we are still using fossil fuel. And that's why we call it brown hydrogen. In some instances, we use a natural gas. We call it gray hydrogen. In some instances, we use a natural gas, but we do carbon capture of those emissions. So we minimize the harmful effect of the emissions on the environment, and then we call it blue hydrogen. We want to move up that value chain of greening, and we want to power this using renewable energy solutions. And that's why we call it green hydrogen. So we have brown, gray, blue. We want to move to green. And the technology exists. It's currently applied by Sasol with regards to the Fischer-Tropsch technology that they have. So there's an existing, if you like, patent and intellectual ability to be able to dismember this into its constituent element. The only problem you must resolve getting it to being green hydrogen is the fact that the process is powered by renewable energy sources. And then there are variants. I mean, there are sub-fuels, power fuels that can be produced out of the green hydrogen. So there's issues around ammonia, a major input into our fertilizers, and also the production of, if you like, explosive for mining, but also for crowd control. So it's important that we are able to, yes, for crowd control. Just the other day, when there were significant inefficiencies of getting ammonia into the country, you remember, when there were blockages and issues of getting the inefficiency of the operation of our ports, we're running out of ammonia. Essentially, our ability to do crowd control was significantly diminished, but we're able to get it quicker into the country without the bad people knowing that we are running out of ammunition. And that's the point that I'm making. So it's a national security problem issue that we also are resolving there. And then the next one, the next slide speaks to, there are 7 major advantages that we have as a country. The first one is that we've got significant amount of endowments. So I spoke about the mineral resources that are required to produce your electrolyzers. And then we've got, if you like, an abundance of energy sources, renewable energy sources. So I'm talking about the irradiation levels. We've got some of the best irradiation levels in the world. The only country that competes with us is Chile. And then the next countries will be Australia and the Middle Eastern countries. Otherwise, others are going to find it difficult to be able to match us on the irradiation levels. And then we also know that we've got over 3,000 kilometers of coastline, healthy, if you like, wind that we can get out of that. That's the first advantage. Remember now I'm answering the question, where will these renewables come from? So renewables essentially is PV, so it's about your irradiation levels, and it's also about solar. And then the second one, I did talk about the concentration of PGMs. I don't have to belabor the point. And then the other one is the technology that exists. Dr. Apollo is here. I forgot to also mention that some of the SOEs are also sitting with this technology, including Petro SA. Of course, Sasol is a creation of a developmental government, of course, of an apartheid nature. But its intention was to affirm the state contribution and role in the economy, as the mayor has said. So the state must not be retrenched in its ability to execute and lead development, but it must aggregate all the players through incentives to make sure that private sector is also part of this conversation. And then the fourth area that we enjoy is that we've got huge real estate. So when you go to the Northern Cape, is the biggest province by land mass, of course, with the smallest population. So it means that there's areas and areas, hectareage of land with excellent irradiation levels, and that land is primarily owned by the state. So you're not going to run into issues of ownership. So that's what we enjoy in the country. Others can have the same amount of irradiation levels, but they don't enjoy the same amount of real estate in the right area. So it's important that it's irradiation levels in the right area. Right area in this instance, it means that there's hectareage of land. And then the fifth one is that we've got a matured grid network. So with ESCOM's problems on the generation side, where you can't fault them is the stability of the grid. Of course, with load shedding, it undermines the frequencies and the ratios. We'll have a technical conversation about that. But what is important is that there's a solid grid that exists. The only problem we have with the grid is that it's concentrated in Mpumalanga because our generation was largely because of coal, and the coal fields are in Mpumalanga. There's sufficient and healthy grid capacity in Mpumalanga. But your renewable sources are in the Northern Cape, the least user of electricity. So you need to build grid capacity in that area to evacuate the molecule or to evacuate the electrons, because we are generating PV. So that's the investment that must be made. And if you listen to the budget speech by the minister, with the bailout or the socialization of the ESCOM, part of the ESCOM debt, it comes with condition: you must invest in grid capacity. As I speak to you, there's 6,000 megawatts of PV project or renewable energy projects that have been approved, but only 2,500 are finding its way into the grid because we can't evacuate it. So you need to build grid capacity. So imagine if we were to get the 3,500 into the grid, we are lowering the levels of load shedding by 3 stages at least. So you have to invest in grid capacity. But it exists, it's matured, it's reaching all parts of the country. And then the other one is around, of course, the geographic positioning. So our ability to, when we export, how we are able to access these markets. You can see on the map, your biggest off-takers is Japan and South Korea. And then the US, I think, is sufficient. They've got sufficient capacity. They can domesticate their requirements there with regards to green hydrogen. And then in instances where there's insufficient demand, they can draw from us. And then, of course, there's the Europeans. And I'll show you that they are beginning to sign the off-take agreements. Remember that to commercialize this, someone must express a genuine intention to buy before you can invest in the infrastructure. And that's the question that we are resolving. Oh, the question is resolved. We are not resolving. And they are prepared to pay a premium going forward. So the Europeans and the Asians, in particular Japan and South Korea, why are these ones important? Because they have codified their nationally determined contributions, the net zero path, into law. So they've made it law that they are going to achieve net zero emissions. And then just to build on the case in relation to demand, of the total countries in the world, 64 of the major industrialized countries in the world account for 89% of all emissions in the world. That's why when you go to COP, the less industrialized, the poor countries, middle-income countries like ourselves, who are making an argument, but it must be equal but differentiated responsibilities. Because we can't be held responsible for something that we have not created. The levels of emissions that exist in the world is the major industrialized countries that are responsible for this. So as we make this transition, they've got a moral and ethical obligation to finance our transition so that we protect our sovereignty, our strategic national interest, and also ensure that we create new employment opportunities. It can't be imposed on us. It must be a healthy conversation amongst equals to say that you are disproportionately responsible for the emissions, and therefore you carry the disproportionate amount of responsibility to ensure that there's that transition. But I'm making this point under different circumstances. Here I'm making it just to illustrate that there's significant amount of demand from those countries because they are going to introduce carbon borders. They've committed to be the leaders with regards to transition. They are not sitting with these endowments that we are sitting with. They must get this green hydrogen from somewhere. They'll get it from us. They'll get it from Namibia. They are likely going to get it from Kenya. They'll get it from Egypt on the African continent. And that's why South Africa, Egypt, Kenya, and Namibia have come together to protect our collective interest so that none of us goes on a tangent and negotiates terms that undermines the sovereign and strategic objective of peer countries on the continent. We are able to negotiate as Africans when we see these opportunities going into the future. And in the country, we are building this corridor, as the mayor said, starting from Mogalakwena, the Western Cape, the Northern Cape government have arrived at an agreement. We are taking it to a levels of principals. When there's an inward visit by the president of Namibia coming into the country, we are putting together an agreement for collaboration between South Africa and Namibia. Because these opportunities does not know political and administrative boundaries. So we are likely going to exploit the opportunities if we collaborate with peer countries on the continent going forward. The mayor has spoken about these opportunities really in the rands and cents. That's what it is, 140 to 300 gigawatts. The opportunities with regards to the what can be generated out of the commercialization of this is about 15 to 30 billion rands, US dollars, per annum. And also the investments that is required, both on the PV side and the electrolyzer side, is computed to be anything between 100 to 250 US dollars, and the amount of jobs about 1.4 million. This is the South African story, so I'm not talking about the continental story. The point I'm making is that there are significant and real opportunities that present as a result of what we put in before you. And just as a country, as I conclude, Program Director, is that we have adopted the country's investment strategy. There we identify what we call the big frontiers. So when we say big frontiers, what we mean is, what are these sectors or industries that are likely going to shape the economies of the future? We identify 5 of them, and one of those is around green hydrogen. Its potential, because we have appreciated our location advantage and the fact that we are sitting with that technology, and the fact that the significant amount of demand that is likely going to come from the industrialized countries as they transition from fossil fuel powered economy. So all I'm saying is that this is contextualized in our own green hydrogen roadmap. And then there are policy drivers. There are things that we ought to do ourselves as a country for us to be able to benefit from this opportunity. I do appreciate that it's a localized conversation about eThekwini's position with regards to green hydrogen and how we can take those advantages. But I think it is important that we have a much more aggregate conversation as a country, so that there's no federalization of the opportunities. Of course, someone can lead, it's important, but it must be within an overarching policy framework that is articulated at the national government. And I'm sure that some of the outcomes of this will find expression in that broader articulation as we revise, if you like, our intention of how we see these opportunities. So I spoke about the export markets. We also have a domestic market. I mean, as an illustration, we are resuscitating a mothballed smelter there at Saldanha Bay. It's now under care and maintenance, used to employ 3,000 people. The only reason why the smelter is closed is because of 2 reasons. The inefficiency of the ports, making it difficult or more expensive to export the product, but more significantly was the exponential rise in the cost of energy because of the energy monopoly that is called Eskom. But also recently because of the inability of Eskom to provide the kind of energy that is required. You know that smelters, they consume a lot of energy. Now we are resuscitating it, working with Sasol, because we are using green hydrogen. So this is a perfect illustration of the fact that this conversation is not about the future that has not been seen, but it's about resolving the now. And once we resuscitate that smelter, 3,000 people are suddenly able to find productive employment. And there's about, on average, if you assume that they feed about 5 people per household, 15,000 people now have a meal as they go to bed. And then it's going to attract a lot of investments as we introduce reforms, accelerate the approvals, as the mayor has indicated. I've indicated to you what is the potential investments that can come into the country. There's issues of economic development, reindustrialization, and also contributing to the just transition. Underline the word just in that transition, that the net employment effect as we move, we decarbonize, must be positive. We must reskill so that people are empowered with regards to what the opportunities are going into the future. And just the penultimate slide, Here I'm just showing you that these projects do exist. These projects do exist. So the mayor has spoken about the Mkhalakwena, what we call the Hydrogen Valley. The first of the sub-programs of the valley, the Hydrogen Valley, is the retrofitting of Anglo-American yellow fleet. The second one is to have refueling stations as these trucks, they move from source to port. And the mayor has spoken ad nauseum about that. We are doing one of the biggest green hydrogen intervention called Bukubai. It's about a 35 billion investment. We are working with Transnet. Transnet has already gone out to the market. We are addressing the rail connection to the port and also the optimum location of the port. We are working with the Northern Cape government. The Priska Power Reserve, we are going to produce green ammonia. We launched it just the other day. When we went to the Green Hydrogen Conference in December of last year, we were able to announce to the country a pipeline of 340 billion rands of green hydrogen projects in this country. So it's not about the conversation about the future. These opportunities are now, and there's a significant amount of take. So what is the message out of this slide? You can see that eThekwini is missing. So we're hoping that deriving out of this conversation, we are going to identify those opportunities so that when we map the opportunities and projects in the country, eThekwini features prominently. Then it's an indictment that the fourth largest economy of all the municipalities in the country is not featuring prominently there. So Gauteng is there with its 3 metros, the Western Cape and Cape Town is there, and of course, the coastal cities are there. So it's important, Mayor, that there's something that comes out of this. The point we're making is that there's significant amount of liquidity that is looking to finance and fund these projects, and we can help you with project preparation. We have just been given 300 million per annum to do exactly that exercise, and we'll make it a part of it to you so that we work together. And then in conclusion, I'm simply making the point, Mayor, that you can see we are concluding now in March. We are concluding with the Germans. We are concluding with the Netherlands. And really, this is not an act of generosity. The Germans are not coming to us as a result of some altruistic objective. They are not feeling sorry for us. They are resolving their own energy requirements. And the only place to come is here. So it's important that in those negotiations, they are tilted in our favor because we are the source of this energy. And in the course of doing that, it must contribute towards the regeneration or the recovery of the South African economy and its diversification. We are signing with the Japanese. They are significant off-takers. Of course, the Germans are also bringing their technology onto the table. So the point I'm making is that this is not the story about the future, it's the opportunities that present themselves now. Thank you very much, Executive.
Delegates, I must just indicate to you that I've just been given the clearance to refer to Prof as Prof Rama. It sounds cooler as well. Prof, I know what it's like when your name is challenging. My name is Singobile, but friends and colleagues sometimes refer to me as SK. Suppose it's easier. My 2 key takeaways, Prof, thank you for unpacking your address on sustainable energy solutions, as well as the exploration of renewable energy resources. Your reference to net employment opportunity, 1.4 million jobs for South Africa, is incredible. My second takeaway is your reference to crowd control. I think many of us, we started to remember our SRC participation days and tertiary issues. I'm just joking, delegates. I would now like to request our next speaker to please come forward. We are mindful of the time, but our morning session is about to close. So please continue to bear with us, delegates. We really appreciate it. I would now like to request the Consul General of the United States of America to South Africa, and Lynn, to please come to the stage. Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you for having me here today. I'd like to start by thanking the mayor for the invitation to participate here. And I was originally, as you may have seen on the original program, this was supposed to be a slot by the British High Commissioner speaking on green hydrogen. I am not speaking on green hydrogen, and I think following Dr. Ramakopa's speech, I think I would be poorly placed to speak on it after hearing such a great expert talk about it. I think I learned more about green hydrogen in the last 20 minutes than I knew coming in today. So thank you, sir. I am here to talk about international partnership, and in particular, I'd like to talk about some of the opportunities for partnership with the United States, US companies, and give you an overview of where we see some of these things going and how we can work together. I will also start out by saying that Dr. Ramakopa does an excellent job of representing South Africa at the negotiating table and in conversations, and I assure you that his speech and the words he as he delivered them are exactly how he delivers them to us when we're sitting across the table from him. So you can rest assured that he will make sure that South Africa is represented well in international fora. Part of the reason I'm excited to talk to you to be here today to talk to you is because this is a subnational conversation. I think that one of the things that's unique about the United States is that oftentimes in the United States, so much of our energy policy works from the municipal level up. And I thought before I dove into my official remarks, I'd tell you a little bit about my background and why I feel passionate about this. So I am an American diplomat stationed in South Africa. I've been here in eThekwini for 2 years now. But my first trip to eThekwini was back in 2011, right before the COP talks were held here. I think it was COP 16, I don't remember what the number was. Right here in this facility. And at the time I was posted to our consulate in Cape Town. I lived in Cape Town and was posted there for 3 years, and I came here very early on to support the climate change talks at that time. I'd only been in South Africa for about 2 months, and the minute I got off the plane in Durban, I knew this is the place I wanted to be. It is such a dynamic, warm, and I don't just mean temperature-wise, I mean personality-wise. The people here are so welcoming. And more importantly, it's being in environments like this where you see the nexus and the intersection between business, government, civil society, the media, and all aspects of the interaction here. And it's incredibly impressive to me, and it's part of the reason why I'm excited to be here. I also, before I became a diplomat, I actually worked in urban planning and urban studies. And what prompted me to get into that, and this will get to why I want to talk about it, is I grew up in the United States in the 1970s and 1980s. For those of you that know much about the US history, in the 1970s and 80s, US cities were failing. Municipal revenue collection was plummeting, infrastructure was falling apart. For any of you of that age, you'll know we had numerous blackouts. In fact, the entire city of New York City had a multi-day blackout in 1977 that led to increasing crime. And for any of you that visited New York in the 1970s and 80s, you will know it was a war zone. For any of you that visited New York City in the early 2000s, it was a totally different city. And I believe that it is at that municipal level where you can make the changes that impact people's lives, that grow business, and that also, more importantly, create jobs for the communities. And so that's part of the reason why we're excited to be here. It's part of the reason why we have a consulate here in Durban, is so that we can engage at the subnational level. I also want to dispel a couple of myths about the United States. I think there's this belief that we are pushing 100% for renewable energy at the cost of all things. And one of my favorite trivia points to throw out is, what do you think of when you think of Texas, the state of Texas? You think of oil. Everyone thinks of it as big oil. Do you know it is also the #1 producer of renewable energy products in the United States? The future is renewable working together and transforming to renewable. This is where the job creation is long term. And so this is part of the reason why we're so passionate about working with South Africa to help get to that future. We believe that not only will it help reduce carbon emissions, but it will create sustainable, well-paying jobs in the long term. So I want to start out by complimenting some of the amazing work that's being done and the conversations happening here. I applaud the city and the province for their commitment to this in establishing the war room and appointing a panel of energy experts to accelerate implementation of the energy master plan. And it's exciting to know that both the national government and the provincial government and the municipal government are going to work to remove barriers to expand capacity, particularly in generation and distribution, and to add a mix of alternative and renewable sources into the energy mix. Stabilizing the energy supply is critical to transforming not just the province's supply, but invigorating and accelerating the province's potential for economic growth, and as well as provide stability to existing consumers. And I think it's important to note the potential for the export market is enormous, as Dr. Ramakopa explained. South Africa has the perfect combination, not only of oh my gosh, I lost my word, the ability to generate for themselves, but the materials in the country are the materials that are going to be needed for export as well. This summit highlights the proactive role that eThekwini is already undertaking to pave a brighter future for itself, drawing on the latest developments in the national regulatory environment and exploring the possibilities afforded by technological innovations. Additionally, through stakeholder engagements, the city was able to develop and adopt its energy transition policy in June 2021 that will lead to resilient integrated energy system with diversified low-carbon generation mix to provide the most cost-effective and reliable energy to its constituents. On a separate note, I must commend the municipality and the province for their commitments and active participation at both COP27 in Egypt this year and the Under 2 Coalition, which the Premier referenced yesterday. For those of you that are not familiar with the Under 2 Coalition, the Under 2 Coalition is a UN body under the COP program, which is designed to limit greenhouse temperature rise to below 2 degrees, and KZN is currently the chair, the global chair. The US government is proud to be a core member of the Just Energy Transition Partnership. It's a partnership which aims to support South Africa's accelerated and inclusive transition towards a net zero and climate resilient economy. I know that it oftentimes seems that the United States is advocating for transformation at all costs, but I assure you we are not. Addressing pressing energy security needs and environmental concerns and climate change can happen simultaneously. Again, referring back to the United States, in the 1970s, we were faced with crippling energy crises. Failing grids, as I mentioned, the failure of the grid in New York City in 1977, but at the same time, an extreme environmental degradation, all of which led to innovation, improved regulation, and enhanced energy security for the United States. The Just Energy Transition Partnership is a key element in alleviating the current energy crisis and works to accelerate the rollout of renewable energy and battery storage on the scale of 50+ gigawatts of renewable energy capacity by 2035. My colleagues across the entire United States government are focused on partnering with South Africa to unlock these urgently needed new generation opportunities at a national scale, as well as in municipalities and cities. Many of you in the room are familiar with the alphabet soup of US government agencies that work in the space, including the US Agency for International Development's Power Africa initiative, our Foreign Commercial Service, which is our equivalent of DTI, the US Trade and Development Agency, which helps with environmental impact studies and laying the groundwork for successful tenders and RFPs, and the Development Finance Corporation, which is a new version of the former Exim Bank, all of which are present here in South Africa. This is the only country in Africa where all of these agencies are present and work, and in fact, one of only a handful of countries where they exist, where we have the presence globally. And part of the reason they're here is that we recognize that municipalities and cities are uniquely placed to address load shedding and energy security challenges through their direct sales channels and touch points with industrial and residential customers. I'd like to highlight how we are providing some support at the subnational level to advance municipal energy sector planning and service delivery. First, through direct energy procurements. Under the much anticipated changes to the Electricity Regulation Act, municipalities can now competitively procure their own power generation assets to meet local demand. With strategic forecasting, these assets can be developed to meet anticipated future demand and provide confidence to the private sector that municipalities can meet their energy needs. It's important to note, I'll touch on this a few times, how critical it is that eThekwini makes such a commitment to paying their bills to ESCOM on time. That builds tremendous confidence in the investor community. We see the critical role municipalities can play in addressing the energy crisis and attracting foreign direct investment to bolster the economy. Our goal is to support municipalities to improve their energy security and manage their income by negotiating affordable contracts directly with independent power producers or receiving wheeling tariffs. Through Power Africa, a U.S. government initiative coordinated by the U.S. Agency for International Development, we work directly with municipalities to develop requests for proposal, develop financial models to understand costing and tariff settings, and act as an advisor to local governments to ensure the municipalities can attract high quality, technically sound, and financially appropriate bids. And I think this is critical. I think understanding that it's not just getting the bids on the project, it's getting bids on the project that will be able to be seen to completion and execution, which is critical to moving these issues forward. A second area that we're working on is rooftop solar programming and related incentives. As I'm sure many of you heard in the Premier's State of the Province address last week, she highlighted rooftop solar panels as one of the province's priorities. When properly incentivized through clear regulatory measures, rooftop solar can play a critical role in alleviating load shedding. With the recent national budget speech highlighting the intention to promulgate new regulations, this is an excellent opportunity for municipalities to establish programming and communication strategy to encourage rooftop solar uptake. This can also free up additional load on the grid, which allows for sound financial management through cost sharing with customers and allows for expanded industrial production. Last month, I was quite excited to attend an event at ART Solar, which is a manufacturing facility in New Germany. It's a 100% South African-owned company that employs a few thousand people. And they launched a partnership with the US global giant Honeywell to manufacture state-of-the-art solar PV panels. It's important to note that those solar PV panels are for use in South Africa and the region at this time, and the demand has already been amazing. In the relatively short term, the partnership has been established, and this was before the announcement of the change at the national level. Power Africa is already working closely with other cities in South Africa to assess the financial models and incentive schemes for rooftop solar installation. A third area which we're working in is electrification planning. At this important moment in time, when municipalities are more empowered than ever to craft their own energy trajectory, we encourage every municipality to review their plans. Being prepared with concrete plans places municipalities in excellent positions to attract investment capital and government funding. And what I mean by this is we will regularly be contacted by US companies who are interested in getting into the South African market. And they'll say, do you have a municipality that you can recommend that we work with? A municipality that has a clean audit, a municipality that has a plan that they look like they're going to be able to implement of a size of about X. And for us, being able to highlight and identify those municipalities is critical. And this is I realize most people in here are from eThekwini and work in eThekwini, but this goes for smaller municipalities also further outside. So we encourage you to focus on the planning, and we are able to help with that as well. So for example, Power Africa recently partnered with a municipality in the Eastern Cape to develop a 5-year electrification plan. As a result, the municipality was able to secure 87 million rand from the Housing Development Authority to undertake 9 projects identified in the plan, including electrification of an informal settlement that is delivering more than 1,000 new direct connections. Another area that we're working in is helping to alleviate the challenges for municipal budgets, which I think, as everyone knows, is a huge challenge throughout the country at this point, and directly linked to any conversation about electricity. Constituents expect municipalities to provide access to energy as a basic right. However, municipalities work with extremely limited budgets. In many cases, municipal energy distributors operate at a loss, their debt to ESCOM growing, and long-term viability further at risk. Once again, I commend eThekwini for making payment of their bills to ESCOM a priority. It also sends an important message not only to the business community, but to private citizens about the role of prompt payment. For municipalities that struggle in this area, we assist with the cost of energy studies so that their tariffs can reflect the real market conditions. We also help them address technical and non-technical losses to improve long-term sustainability. Reliable access to energy enables social and economic growth, and through our collective efforts, we can address the challenges of load shedding through innovative engagement with the private sector, steady hand planning, and creative and inventive incentive schemes. We're dedicated to helping solve the current crisis through collaboration and meaningful partnership with municipalities and cities throughout the country. And the last issue we work on is helping to foster public and public-private partnerships. I'm going to highlight a couple U.S. companies that are looking to get involved in eThekwini and the work that they're doing. There's a U.S. company, Sun Africa, and Progression Energy, and Progression, I'm looking for the Progression Energy Development Officer, who I know is in the room somewhere. Josh Franklin back there. Josh, if you want to raise your hand, I want to highlight you even more. Josh flew in from San Diego, right? Did I get that right? Okay. Just to attend this conference. That's how committed U.S. companies are to helping to getting to the bottom of the solution of this. So I encourage you, if you haven't had a chance yet, particularly if you work for the municipality, to talk to Josh. But they're coming, U.S. companies are coming here eager to work and partner with the municipality by investing in reliable and sustainable renewable energy projects. For instance, Sun Africa wants to come in and design, build, and finance and hand over to the city a package of solar power solutions with battery storage, smart meters, and demand management technology, all included as part of the package. Progression Energy, on the other hand, is eager to bring the first offshore floating wind project in Africa to eThekwini, which could be a major component in helping with the energy transition that will enable the city to secure its energy future. Progression is looking, and Josh, raise your hand if I get these numbers wrong, is looking to invest $3 to $5 billion. Yep, okay, I got the thumbs up, towards a 1,000 megawatt project off the coast of KZN. These projects, if enacted, could be enormous job creation potential in the thousands over the life of their projects. Finally, I want to ensure you that the U.S. wants to be your partner, and that is really the message I want you to take away from this today. The success of South Africa is success for the United States. I know that there's a huge perception out there that what the United States and many of the European partners are looking for is a new model of colonialism and imperialism, and let me tell you, that is not the case. A successful, stable, democratic South Africa that works within a rules-based order is the model that the world needs to be successful globally, and we want to do what we can to help South Africa get there. We look forward to further discussions and strategizing to assist wherever possible in the country's success, the province's success, and eThekwini's success in a transformation. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak, and I look forward to hearing the rest of the conversation as we go on. And I encourage you, if you have any interest in any of these projects, my colleagues from the embassy are in this back corner over here. They've just raised their hands. I encourage you to go up and talk to them. This is what they work on full-time, all day, every day. Thank you very much.
A warm welcome to the Whip of the Council, Councillor C. Shange. We thank you very much for joining us on day 2 of our summit. Thank you very much to the U.S. Consul General for your words of encouragement, highlighting what is going right in Africa, in South Africa, in KZN, especially in eThekwini. I've always believed that Africa is a place of manufacturing excellence. We are good enough. We've just got to believe it. And our journey towards sustainable, accelerated growth is well on its way. Because we are journeying with 2 priorities in mind: economic growth and job creation, a better life for all. Delegates, the conversation continues. We are now going to take a 15-minute comfort break, and we are going to continue after the break. I will be handing over to my friend Shepherd Nkosi, who will facilitate the panel discussion on eThekwini's regional hydrogen strategy. Please, delegates, let us use the break as an opportunity to network and connect with like-minded people. If you are a small business in the room, take advantage of this gathering to engage others, put forward your business, promote yourself. The exhibition is also ongoing. Delegates, we encourage you to take a walk through. Also, we are encouraged to all go and meet Josh and the team. Josh, you're going to be flooded. Thank you so much for being a wonderful, interactive audience. Thank you so much for coming to eThekwini, and we must also extend an ongoing appreciation to eThekwini Municipality for this much-needed conversation with actionable targets that we are going to measure and hold to account. I thank you.
We would like them to stand and take a photo, and you join them, please. Do you want to bring the screen?